So Timmy's here. Well, the 2025 blacklist has been announced, which is of course like unproduced scripts that's announced. Now some of these might actually get produced, some of them might not. Who knows? But a lot of the films here that like scripts they listed do sound intriguing. Of course, some of the blacklist scripts includes the likes of films about Waffle House and AI David Bowie, Kobe Bryant's NBA draft, and many others. So there's tons of interesting ones here. So here are the blacklist scripts. All right, the 2025 blacklist scripts are these: bestseller, in New York's literary scene, a struggling writer pressured by her famous novelist husband to have a baby pens an oral article that goes viral. This this sparks a dangerous battle of seduction, manipulation, and betrayal in the public-private spheres. Interesting there. We got equality. After an ambitious former founder sells a portion of himself to a charismatic billionaire magnate, his world spirals into a high-stakes battle to buy back control of his company and his future and his life. Cool there. We got a script called Rush. And no, it's not about the band Rush. When a college student is assaulted by a frat guy who faces no consequences. She and her best friend rushes fraternity undercover to get revenge, only to become the unlikely stars of a Delta Lotta's Kappa's pledge class and gets enraged to date. That sounds pretty fun there. We got something called Untouchable. Um, the true story explodes of serial killer Elliot Ness during his hunt the true exploits of Elliot Ness. My bad, not during his hunt for the torso murders, a serial killer whose body reign terrorized 1930s Cleveland. Okay, interesting. We got something called Minnow. When her sister goes missing, Minnow is a seemingly troubled woman, goes to extreme lengths to hunt down the mysterious man who took her. The disturbing truth goes beyond just one missing girl, and nothing, including Minnow, as it seems. That sounds pretty intriguing. We got something called Fixation. A couple's therapist is drawn into a dangerous triangle of lust, lies, and manipulation when she begins an affair with a stranger who turns out to be the husband of her new client. Cool. Why does that sound like a Lifetime movie though? But anyway, we now this one I don't know if it's gonna go well with David Bowie's family. To be honest, yeah, sounds intriguing here. Building Bowie in the near future, obsessed with AI because that's what we're in right now. A generated nostalgia, a repressed droid wrangler is assigned to build a David Bowie replica, and as the droid begins evolving beyond its programming, the wrangler must confront the creation dreams she buried and decide whether to protect her job and risk everything to reclaim her voice. That sounds interesting, but I don't know. Will this actually get made? Because I mean, sadly, stuff like this probably does happen in real life. Like, there's probably AI of tons of that celebrities out there, which is really sad to say at least. But that's where we're living in nowadays, I guess. All right, we also got a Leverage, not to be confused with the TV show. After a high-profile murder threatens a multi-billion-dollar hostile takeover, an embedded Wall Street titan emerges as a prime suspect and must win a war of perception in order to protect her empire at all costs. That sounds interesting. We got something. We got an untitled erotic teen fan fiction movie. Doesn't have a title yet, but in it, Delaney Pitts is a nerdy teen version who has a secret online life as an erotic fan fiction author. But when a publisher tasks her with writing a book about her non-existent high school love life, she's forced to team up with a top expert in the field, the who's the quarterback of a football team. Okay, sounds interesting there. We got something. We got the script alpha, which this was actually announced like just last week, really, with Taron Egerton. You saw. Where a middle-mannered American analyst climbs the ranks of a ruthless London investment firm, only to discover a horror more frightening than the industry itself, a monster awakening with him. This is actually described as American Psycho meets an American Werewolf in London. I'm all there. We got something called West Coast Living, when a mysterious event settles outside the middle class couple's home. A simple noise complaint unleashes the relentless campaign of a psychological warfare, and escalating violence. Interesting. We got something called ETL. When a husband and wife research team, along with their graduate student, travel to a remote abandoned village to study aftermath of the mysterious mass disappearance. Their scientific investigation quickly unravels onto the unexpected paranoia of terror. Okay, sounds interesting. We got something called Do It Yourself. Tom and Helen hosts a wildly popular home renovation show. Are America's first couples. When Tom dies in his mistress Melody's bed, polar opposites Helen and Melody decides to move his body home to clinical this to conceal the scandal. What could go wrong? We've seen so many renovation shows, so cool. We got something called Incidents. A woman search for answers after surviving a mysterious abduction. Okay, interesting. Doesn't really say anything else beyond that, but we also got a script called Rotting Hurt. A former a former rodeo star caught between his criminal past and fragile shot at redemption is drawn into a dangerous run of heists and betrayals while trying to find a way back to his family. Sounds interesting there. We got something called a unicorn. When a tech mogul and his wife invite a third into their marriage for a weekend away, their charged celebration devolves into a cat and mouse game of deception. Sounds fun. We got something called Wild Palms. An ambitious griffer and a seasoned reptile hunter form an unlikely partnership to exploit Florida's exotic wildlife for profit. But the risky black market ventures into a lead them into a world of danger, betrayal, and life-altering consequences. Interesting. We got something called Blackout. When eco terrorists attacks LA's power grid and orchestrate a decading citywide blackout, a jaded former Secret Service agent and a brilliant but unassuming engineer must fight their way across the metropolis in the dark to restore power before their city collapses. Okay. We don't see many movies set during a blackout, but that could be pretty interesting. All right, we also got a film called Letter Man. A group of fraternity brothers wake up in a night of partying nobody can remembers, and find a dead body in the basement. It's a fraternity president's ex-girlfriend. Each of the brothers has a equal cause, evidence stacked against them, and lack of alibi. Okay. We got something called Alter. As a secret lab, a neuroscientist uses cutting edge technology to rewire the mind of a psychopathic killer, forcing his own memories onto him in hopes of trigger empathy. But their minds intertwine, bury truth claws to the surface, plunging them both into a psychological battle where what the boundaries of sanity begins to blur. Sounds fun there. We got Early Action, where two parents go to extreme lengths to get their son into a dream college, even if it means manufacturing a traumatic experience for them to rewrite about his in his admission essay. Cool. We got something called Flamer. In his final weeks of a wilderness camp, 15-year-old Aiden faces bullies, shifting friendships, and overwhelming crush in a turbulent reckoning of his identity. It is actually based on a graphic novel, so there's that. We got something called frostbite. There are 300 frozen bodies on the way to the summit of Mount Everest. For blind climber Lucas Mills, he can still hear them. A survival horror experience on Everest. Okay. We got something called Out of the Hollow. In need of a of funds to pay off his father medical care, Danny Locosio enlists his miracle best friend Rusty in a series of jewel store robberies. However, the pair soon find themselves on a crosshair of both the FBI and local organized crime, all while old secrets unravel and threaten to change their lives forever. Sounds cool there. We got something called the parole officer. A parolee looking to stay on the straight and narrow is seduced by a mysterious woman into a drug-fueled one-night stand. Voting the rules of his parole, the woman turns out to be his newly appointed parole officer. Ooh, that sounds fun. Who unleashes a plan to blackmail him in committing an escalating series of crimes, or else he'll be sent back in prison for the rest of his life. That sounds scary. We got now. This is an interesting one. We got the Waffle House Index. The following three things are true. One, the Waffle House Index is a metric used by the FEMA to measure the severity of a natural disaster. Two, Jane works the graveyard shift at her local Waffle House. Three, there's a storm coming. I don't know what that's supposed to be about. But the production company, by the way, is Brad Pitt's company Plan B, who gave us Moonlight and many others. So there's that. All right, we also got Bad Memories, an infamous investigator and an unexplained phenomenon, and a highly skilled audio repair engineer work together to solve a very perplexing case file. Cool there. We got Don't Do 72, where Night Jenner is one never to reclaim the 72nd floor of a corporate high rise, but when a coworker disappears, she breaks the rules only to discover something ancient and wrench watching lurking the just beyond the glass. Sounds interesting there. All right. Now this one actually sounds intriguing. We got a film called Geezers. If you get now, this is actually a slasher project here. After surviving a prom night massacre over 50 years ago, Alice's golden years are interrupted by a copycat killer terrorizing her small retirement community. That sounds interesting because you don't really see many horror slasher movies with with an older lead. I mean, I guess you could say obviously most recent the Halloween film, which had Jamie Lee Curtis and stuff, but like the recent one we just had. But you don't really get many horror films. It's usually rare seeing horror slasher movies with a woman in their 60s, 70s and stuff. So this could be hopefully this actually gets made. This does sound intriguing. I mean, who could you get your star on that one? I don't know, Jamie Lee Curtis maybe. Lynn Shay could be good. Who knows? All right. Also, here, we also got a script called "Let's Be Friends," where an awkward 30-something woman on a quest for new friends thinks she's another hit the molo when she's invited on a vacation by a seemingly perfect group of lifelong besties, but she instead finds herself on a beach weekend in hell. As the group's codependent dysfunction becomes the least of their worries. That could be interesting. We got something called Lyanna, an overly ambitious young woman's obsession with a notorious hedge fund manager leads her increasingly disturbing behavior on a quest to get close and ultimately take down her idol. That sounds interesting. We got something called Pinfall, where Lola is a former wrestler turned manager, finally sees her chance for a big break when she discovers a once in a generation talent, only to risk not just her shot at success, but the people she cares about the most. When the brutal world of professional wrestling begins to take a toll. That sounds intriguing. We got something called Revenge Body, inspired by the Count of Monte Cristo's. 15 years after a high school prank ruined his life, a now unrecognizable personal trainer sets his sights on destroying the lives of a group of former students responsible. Okay, this sounds intriguing. We got something called the Milkman. After his beloved cow is senselessly killed, in a peaceful dairy farmer, a peaceful dairy farmer becomes vengeance obsessed. One man wrecking crew, setting out to the modern world to take the corrupt government and the violent enforcers who protect it. That could be intriguing. We got something called the Texan. When a self-made Houston mogo takes a young, ambitious West Texas striver under his wing, he ignites psychological warfare between mentor and protege over fortune, family, reputation, and life and death. Cool. We got something called Alex Alert, where Alex O'Hara is struggling through a divorce when everyone in LA County starts recovering emergency alerts on their phones, revealing the details of Alex's depressing life. Unable to stop the alert from coming, Alex decides to lean in and try to use his newfound accountability to turn his life around. Okay. We got something called American Midnight. When several bodies are found along the highways of the American Midwest, a divorced state trooper and her estranged FBI husband must work together to find a tracker murdering young woman for his sick wife, who's a vampire. Okay, more vampires? Why not? We got capable people while hosting a fundraiser for the election with a razor thin Morgan, a morally conflicted congressman and her staff desperately tries to contain a ballooning scandal that threatens to destroy her career, her marriage, and her balance of power in DC. Sounds cool there. We got something called cutouts. A detective whose mind is delirating after a tragic misstep becomes obsessed with an unexplainable case. Unrelated people keep claiming that their bodies have been stolen from them and they've been left stranded as someone else. Can you imagine being stranded in another person's body? That wouldn't be fun. Well, it might be. I don't know. All right, we also got Infestation. A suburban family's life spirals into horror after their son is bitten by a strange beetle and begins transforming into a monstrous insect. Okay. Uh, does not sound like The Fly at all. I don't know. I am getting a little bit of David Cronenberg vibe with this one. We got something called Trace, where forensic sketch artist's life is upended when her latest homicide of a serial killer looks identical to her husband of 6 years. That sounds creepy. We got something called House of Time, when a billionaire invites five guests to an irreverent weekend at his concluded chateau. What starts as an elaborate time travel game quickly turns deadly real, or we think. Sounds fun there. All right. We got Mr. Blackburn, where a passionate inner city high school teacher discovers that he's accidentally inspired his former students into a life of meaninglessly minimum wage work, and as well as the nominal student debts. Together, they pick up a life of crime to pay off the debts and realize the American dream he had once promised them. Okay. We got something called Lords of the Dance. When a 35-year-old Chicago ditch digger gets the opportunity of a lifetime to represent the ancestral homeland of the world's biggest music competition, he unleashes a blockbuster dance phenomenon that will make Ireland a global superpower and finally set his people free. Based on a true story of Riverdance. We also got the Yoko Ono biopic titled Oh Yoko. Of course, Yoko Ono was married to John Lennon. I mean, the actress from a Shogun, Anna Sawai, she's actually playing Yoko Ono in the upcoming Beatles film. I don't think this has anything to do with that. This is most likely a separate thing. So, I don't know, could be interesting to say the least. I mean, will they? I don't know. Will they actually? If this actually does get made, will they? I don't know. Possibly get Anna Sawai back to play the role. Someone else. I could just say maybe Greta Lee, but who knows? All right. We also got something called Capricorn, where a married couple spice things up by starting a relationship with a mysterious young woman and it entangles them into a web of deception and danger. Sounds interesting. We got Renegade Gate, where a troubled FBI crisis negotiator finds himself stuck in a time loop, reliving the events of a attacker and is struggling to stop it before time runs out. We got something called Sister, where Sister Molly is not a sister anymore, not after falling in love and leaving the covenant behind, but 2 years later, when a relationship ends, she returns to the covenant to figure out who she idolizes more, God or her ex-boyfriend. We got something called Standby. On her final voyage of a flight attendant, a woman finds herself trapped in a transpacific flight with a passenger who is adamant that they're perfect together and will do everything he can to win her over. I can't tell if that's cute or creepy or what, but anyway. We got something called the Black Echo. After a hostage rescue mission goes wrong, an elite SWAT team is forced into a vast underground tunnel system, cut off the strip of their tactical advantage by the enemy, unlike anything they've encountered, who's turned the labyrinth into their killing field. Sounds interesting. We got something called the Pirate, where one of the one of the storm-tossed sea of 18th century, a fisherman infiltrates a modern pirate warship. Cool there. We got something called Else. After years of consequences, free time travel, a man named Guy discovers his reckless behavior has created dozens of alternate versions of himself, or who wants to take him out. Okay. I guess if this actually does get made, it'll be an actor playing multiple characters. Cool. All right. We also got something called Crush, where when a woman goes on a solo hike in Everglades and forest, she wakes up with a massive snake curled around her ankles. Oh, this was actually announced not so long ago. Uh, and this actually does sound fun. This actually is from 20th century. This was actually a movie that, like a film that was actually announced like I think last month or something. Sounds pretty creepy. I mean, could you imagine like all alone and and you're about to get eaten by a snake? Could you imagine that? That's definitely very creepy right there. All right. We also got something called Guys with No Friends. When form dang it, lost that. All right. When four middle-aged friends are pushed into a mandate by their fed-up wives, they stumble into a night of misadventures that leaves them bruised, bonded, and forever changed. That sounds pretty fun. We got something called Heartless Express. In rural Wyoming, a stressed out single mom on the brink of an empty nest gets dragged into a disastrous state, hunky tonk nights, family blowups, and new possibly fated romance, pushing her to discover that the hardest road to navigate is the one back to herself. That's interesting. We got something called Last Stop in the Desert, where disgraced journalists visit a hippie commune to rekindle an old flame, but when a body turns up in the middle of his first he wakes up acid trip. He takes it up upon himself to investigate, even as the trip turns his search for truth into a narrow scope of clues, visions, and lies. Cool there. We got something called Object of Permanence, where Peter Donnelly has it all. Best-selling novel, an incomparable home, tenured professor. Lost it. Sorry about that. Sometimes this thing likes crashing once in a while. This will take a second, guys. Should have wrote this down instead. What was that offer? All right, here we are. Object Prominence. Peter Donnelly has it all. Best-selling novel, a home tenor professor. More importantly, he and his wife Jamie are madly in love. When Jamie is disappears, his perfect life and devotion to his wife are put to the test as his society and everyone around him rush to convict him of murder. That's nice. We got something called Peaches, where Molly is a lovable mess, newly divorced and drinking way too much. After one particularly reckless night, finds the unlikely lifeline she needs in. Peaches an enormous Saint Bernard rescue dog. Sounds adorable there. Hopefully the dog doesn't die at the end, but who knows? We got something called Serpent Girl. When he wakes up, necked by a highway, Bailey Quinn is only sir of few things. He's in the world of a testicle plan, pain. He's tripping out on his head of on a polo, and someone seems to have made himself an assist attempt at slashing at taking him out here. Um, he can uh he can for his life remember him what happened and then it all comes back to him: the circus, the heist, the betrayal, and even more. And even though Bailey starts on a bloody bonner for retribution, he winds up finding love and unexpected state of Graceland. All right. Okay. We also got something called Dead Man's Island, where another pirate film, by the way. A pirate is marooned on a mysterious island, only to discover that he's being stalked by a bloodthirsty creature. That actually sounds more interesting. We got something called we got something called the life of the light from the arcade. On a nostalgic hometown visit, a delusion dude is sucked into his favorite childhood arcade game, where he must team up with his teenage self to fight a horde of mind-bending monsters and find a way back home. Together, they're forced to confront their past and save their future. That sounds pretty fun. Sounds a little bit like the Adam Project, though. With Ron Reynolds and Percy Jackson kid. Sounds like it'd be fun there, but who knows? Anyway, we also got something called the Stag of the Bow. Desperate to revive their marriage, a suburban couple invites a stranger into their bedroom, only to discover that some fancies can really kill the mood. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but anyway. We got something called Amphora, a dramatic thriller that takes place over two parts of a man's life. Okay. We got something called Entertaining. Cooking show superstar Khalees Ball and their upstart rival Josie Baker via Food Media's most covered broadcast Thanksgiving over the course of a decade. Cool. We got something called Handyman. When a frustrated single-home father in Brooklyn feels increasingly drained by a charismatic handyman hired by his wife, the simmering rivalry escalates into a volatile battle of wills that threatens to unravel their families. Cool. There's something called Camp, Kampf. Okay. An actor from a medical hit show disappears for years before suddenly reappearing in the History Channel reenactments, playing the role repeatedly Joseph Goebbels. His reasons for such a old professional choice remains unknown until he meets a young girl dying of cancer to make a wish. That could be interesting. We have something called Place to Be, where James is a good dad who flies to a good dad who flies a bit close to the sun, hasn't seen his kids in 10 years, but not by choice. When he decides to make his grand return to his daughter's destination wedding weekend, but no one recognizes who he actually is, James must fight to win his family's trust so he can walk his daughter down the aisle. Cool. We got something called Sugar Free. When a sugar dad and sugar moms dump when their sugar daddy and their sugar mommy dumps them to be together, a self-absorbed digger and a lovable slacker joined forces to break their exes and get their back on the easy street. That sounds really fun right there. We got something called Sunlight. A husband and wife's marriage is tested when the husband is bitten by a bat and becomes a vampire. Sounds fun. We got something called the Survivalist. Against her wishes, highbrow reality TV producer Annie is assigned to a new show hosted by a Mako survival expert Chopper Lane. However, when a shipwreck strands the two of them on a desert island, Annie discovers Chopper is a fraud and knows nothing about survival, leaving her in charge of keeping them alive. Forced to work together, and the two soon. Now this wasn't as recent. The two discover an unlikely chemistry. Now the one who's supposed to star in this one is Blake Lively, so that should be interesting to see. I like Blake Lively. I don't care what anyone says. Blake Lively's awesome. We also got the Valley of Hinnom. When a ruthless teenager is in an extremist group, goes undercover at a synagogue. Plotting to bomb. He finds himself relying on the very people he's supposed to destroy. That sounds interesting. We also got Vienna. Now here's what this is about. An interpreter of the U.S. Embassy of Vienna in Vienna must act quickly when she's pulled into a late night between the American and Russian president and discovers that they are negotiating the outcome of her pre-planned nuclear. Sounds intriguing. And last but not least, this was actually announced not so long ago. Matter of fact, it is a biopic about fame NBA the late NBA superstar Kobe Bryant. Now it will be is titled with the eighth pick in 1996 NBA draft. New Jersey's Nets GM John Nash fights against his own organization and wants to take the untested high schooler named Kobe Bryant. Now, from the sound of it, doesn't sound like it's actually a biopic. Really, sounds a little bit like that movie Air, the movie about drafting Michael Jordan and stuff. Really is more like drafting him more than an actual biopic and all. That does sound intriguing to say the least. I mean, Kobe Bryant, who sadly tragically passed away back in 2020, he obviously was a basketball phenom, so I think a story about him could be fascinating. Even though it's not a biopic, I think any type of story about him could be intriguing. So, I don't know, I think this could be interesting to say the least, when it gets made. But lots of these actually sounds intriguing. But I'll leave a link to the description below so you can check out, the list yourself and pick which one you think sounds more interesting. But which of these scripts you think sounds intriguing? Drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Timmy signing out.